this week. If everything fails, you'll still get to hear the webinar from me. So we're gonna go ahead with that and see where we go. Everyone says it's static right now. Awesome. Cool. Someone was saying it seems to sink in on itself and then now it's static. Cool. It's because I was bringing up a different part of the actual screen. I'm not going to wear my headphones because my echo in my own ears is super weird. So I'm going to take that away. But we are going to definitely get started. People saying they can hear, they're using the app, everything seems fine. Yes, sees all slides. Awesome. You guys are so good for sticking in with us every week and giving us some feedback as we change through our system here. We're kind of flying blind every week as we get some tips from Blue Jeans and how to do this. It's going to be a great system as soon as we get it all set up the way that it needs to be. So I appreciate everyone. Happy Monday. It is 12:06. We do have a PowerPoint today, and I want to talk about tracking, goal setting, and accountability. I think very, very important for what we're trying to do here with the M Healthy program, and how important it is for you as the participant for your behavior change. So with any weight loss program, with any kind of health coaching program, behavior change is the thing we're trying to get at. Whether you're joining Weight Watchers, whether you're joining some diet that you got off the internet, or you're joining a new gym that's got exercise classes and a personal trainer, all of those health people or those health professionals are trying to get you to change something in your lifestyle, whether it's your routine or it's a different behavior that you want to kind of minimize and then bring about something else. There is so much there that we want to try to change, but yet we kind of fall off. Some people will say, oh, I started this and it was working really well, but then I ended up rerouting back to my original ways. And I'll ask them, well, what do you mean you rerouted? What happened? Was it you got bored of it kind of thing? Was it too hard? Did you run out of suggestions? What kind of happened in the sense of the routine you started changed along the way? And oftentimes what I'll get when they're like, oh yeah, it was working. So I joined Weight Watchers and it was working. I got bored of the meetings, or I fell out of routine because there was one week that I had that was really bad, and I was busy, and or my kids needed me, or my spouse needed me, and I got out of that routine, and then it was so hard to get back in. So that happens a lot. And if you're shaking your head and you're saying, yeah, that's happened to me before, it's happened to me too. It's happened to any of us health educators here at M Healthy. Like that's an everyday life. We have behaviors we want to change. It's stuff that we really want to try to make the best of. And someone said no echo. Thank you so much for continuing to give me feedback on what's going on. I appreciate that. But getting back to what happens is everyone runs into changes in routine or reverts back. Like, again, if you celebrate Easter, which was the holiday, was Good Friday, and then Saturday, Sunday, this is a big holiday for people. Or if you last Monday were celebrating Passover, and holidays are a big point in time. We spend time with family, we do these different things, but then that also throws us out of our routine of maybe we were trying to make sure we got at least 3 servings of vegetables with every single day or something like that. And it's like, oh, I totally didn't get 3 servings of vegetables with my week this week. And it's because that stuff throws us out. The big part that tracking, that goal setting, that action plans, that accountability, like me, the accountability of our health educators here can bring to the table is getting you right back on track, getting you back into those things that work for you. Because we know as health professionals, and as the person who's trying to change, that you're not going to be perfect every single day. It's just not possible. Like, there's no way that you can immediately go from doing a behavior that you might have been doing for 5, 10, 15, 20 years and then try to change it. And in 2 weeks, everything is hunky dory and everything's good. And you're never going to go back to the old behavior that you used to do. It's just not that simple. And when people say, hey, I want to eat healthy, Brett, I say, okay, that's great. I really do believe you that you want to eat healthy and that you want things to go better in your nutrition and in your diet. I totally believe you. But what happens when it doesn't? What happens when it doesn't go well? What can you fall back on? What rules can you come back to that you have given yourself that makes sense in your life? And you can get back to doing the things that worked for you in the past. Um, I relate it a lot of times, like golf is in full swing. A lot of people like golf. They watch it on TV or they play it. And those professional golf players, they work hours, countless hours on their swing, just swinging a club in different variations, in different routines, in different situations, in the idea of where the ball is lying in the grass or in the sand or anything. So what I'm going with this analogy is they swing that club over and over and over again, and guess what? They still will hit bad shots. They will still hit an approach shot to the green that goes in the sand, even though they've hit that shot 1,000 times and it's landed on the green. This can be relayed to the same thing you're trying to do with eating more vegetables during your week. You practice and you practice at bringing certain vegetables in to make sure that they help crowd out some of the higher sugary junk food that's around the office. But every now and then, that junk food gets the better of you and you end up right in the bunker. And you have to take a penalty shot, but then you get back on track. And you kind of come back around to, nope, I'm going to come back through. I'm going to do whatever I need to do to recollect myself. And I'm back on the green and I'm going to sink this putt here because I know where I'm doing. So it's that whole metaphor, that whole analogy is we're all going to have routine things that we do that can't go off track because of one thing or another. Maybe our mind slips focus or a friend comes into town. But where we can really solidify some of that behavior change is making sure the actions are in place. The tracking is there, whether we use our smartphones. So I have my iPhone here that we're going to talk a little bit about, whether we use pen and paper. So I'm taking a pen and I'm writing things down as my day goes along. We're going to look at some examples here. But the thing is if you're doing some sort of tracking, you are way more, research tells us, you and me and everyone else that reads the research, the data shows us that if you're tracking something, doesn't mean you have to track the same thing as your neighbor, or it probably doesn't mean you're going to track the same thing as your neighbor. But the reason tracking works and goal setting works and action plans work is because it keeps you focused on the things that mean something to you. All right. So that is why we offer coaching in this program. How can coaching help you? Well, it can help you with just a couple. These are just a few things. Learning to calculate your daily caloric needs. Creating daily meal plans. We can help with that. We're not going to tell you exactly what to eat. We're not going to just print off a daily meal plan and say, here you go, without ever talking to you. What we're going to do is start to get to know you and ask you probing questions and ask you things about like, well, what kind of food do you like and what kind don't you like? We might ask you to actually keep a food log for us so we can see some of the stuff that you're doing and maybe the restaurants you're attending or things you're doing for lunch and dinner and breakfast and snacks. We're going to ask for that data so then we can offer good suggestions and brainstorming for that. We're going to help with support on exercise programs or activity. Last week we talked about the difference between general activity and I'm trying to adjust the camera here without really seeing where my face is. So I hope the video is on there. I think I'll see after the end of it. But we want that stuff. Where was I at? Oh yeah, supporting with an exercise program. We talked last week about general activity versus exercise and what does that look like in my life. Finding assistance in overcoming kind of that diminishing returns or weight loss plateaus. So the thing where, I've lost some weight, but then the changes I've made, they're no longer enough to get me to that next level. So I got to kind of go back to the drawing board and reevaluate what's going on. All these things we know how to address. Now, we might not have all the answers. No one person has all the answers. But what we can do is try to point you in those right directions by either giving you some answers that work or getting you to somewhere else that maybe can help. So it's the idea of coaching. Use that coaching. Use us. contact with us. Make sure if you make a phone call with us that you're getting your questions answered. Don't let us just ramble on about something that maybe isn't really relevant to you. We're not going to take offense to that. Be like, oh, no, I have this question. I don't want to talk about that right now. I want to talk about this. But then also, like, paying attention to the idea that when we ask you for specific things you're doing, it's not to shame, it's not to ridicule, it's not to say, oh man, you shouldn't do that. It's the idea to get some data about you so then we can start to point you more of in a direction that you want to go and then keep you accountable to. That is what the coaching is. It can be done through phone, through email, through any of that stuff, meeting in person. We try to balance that out, which works best for the actual individual. But we know that no two people are exactly the same, and no two people are going to use information exactly the same. So we want to be here for you and to support that behavior change and whatever it means to you. So why is it useful? We've talked a little bit about it, but first and foremost, research shows that tracking is useful because it helps keep you mindful on what you're trying to accomplish. And then not only that, that it helps you create action plans from that data. So tracking is just keeping data, right? It's just making sure that we are writing whatever down we want to raise awareness about. So whether it's my activity awareness or nutrition awareness or sleep tracking and my mood awareness of how I feel about certain situations, like there's I kind of call it the OA or like the duh studies, like duh used to be a word that I would use when I was a teenager and when I was an angsty teenager with my mom being like, yeah, do this. I'd be like, duh, I know. Like, it's kind of when you see on the evening news where they're like, oh, the new way to help lose weight, and this, person like me or like any of our health educators comes on screen and says, oh, tracking really, really helps. And you're like, yeah, duh. Tracking does help. But how do I do it? Well, it's useful and you do it by having someone help you hold accountable to it. If you are just tracking and you see the data, but you don't know what to do with it, you're not going to track for very long because you're not going to know maybe how to relate the data that you're getting to some of the results that you're seeing. So it's the idea of how do I, again, here at the bottom of the screen, how do I consolidate all of the healthy behavior data that I'm doing and how do I track the right things for me? And when I say me, I mean you. How do I track the correct things that are pointing me in line with the things that can help me lose weight? Now, we don't know as health coaches what it's going to take for you to lose weight in the first time that we meet you. That's just not possible. Like, I've worked for extensive programs that have huge like diet plans and exercise plans already laid out for people. And they meet with a doctor before they come in, but yet we still don't know the whole puzzle. We don't know all the pieces by meeting you just once. It's going to take time. It's going to take brainstorming and experimenting. And week to week, I'll have clients who be like, well, this 5-minute check-in, I did everything and I lost 2 pounds. What do I do next week? And I say the same thing. And they're like, oh, you don't have any more suggestions? I'm like, no, you did great. You did exactly what you wanted to do. You lost a little bit of weight and you checked in. You did that thing where you checked in to make sure, and that kept you accountable through the week. That was one of the pieces of the puzzle. And they're like, oh, so we just do this 5-minute call and that's cool? Yep, totally. How's everything going? They're like, oh, it was great. I felt great. My food went awesome. I felt like I was very accomplished in the things that I did, and I lost a little bit of weight. Cool. Can you do it again next week? I think so. Awesome. That's how that phone call goes, and you're done. And that's why we can meet with hundreds of you. And we can do that because then if we do have to problem solve something and take a little bit more time, we can, because for every call like that, there's a person who's like, no, I did everything and it worked awesome. And I only needed to just call in for this 2 minutes to make sure that kept me on track. And that's so cool. And tracking can be all those different things. But if you're just calling to call and not really reporting what you're working on or not thinking extensively about what else you could be working on or questions you could ask us, then you're not using it to the best of its ability. tracking data on a piece of paper. I'm holding up a little notepad here, which can be used for tracking. We're going to talk about it in a second here. Tracking just for doing the ink work never works. If you look at all the research, people who just do the ink work, they just write it down because that's what they were told to do. It doesn't work because you're not invested in the thing that you're actually trying to do. But if you meet with one of us and we get you to kind of come up with the things that you want to try, you're way more invested in that. And then we say, okay, now track it and let's see how it works. And if it works, cool, we found it. And if it works on the first try, even better. Great. But if it doesn't work on the first try, I know it's discouraging. Try not to get discouraged. Let's come back and try something else. Or let's tweak this slightly. Okay. So, with all this said, methods of tracking, pen and paper, simple or detailed, it's up to you. I have a couple examples here. Okay. So, for a lot of my clients, and if please in the chat, remember you can always give me feedback or whatever's going on. If you have a question, you want to ask it, I can see it. It's right over here on the right screen here. So type that in, but hopefully you see now that I've switched from PowerPoint to this blank food log. If you're my client, and you talk with me regularly, you've probably seen this before. I give this to a lot of my first time people who are, wanting to experiment with overhauling their diet like completely. Now, I might not give it to them the first or the second time we meet, because the first or the second time it might just be like, hey, let's dip our toe into this nutrition change and let's try some new recipes, or let's try a little bit of food planning, or whatever that may be. But then after a while, I'm like, okay, now I need to see, definitely what's going on. Like, what are we eating for breakfast? What time are we doing that on Monday? What are we eating for an AM snack that gets us to lunch? And what are we doing for lunch? And so writing that stuff down on here, you keep it on your computer, you print it off and write it down. That can be a really good way to start tracking your nutrition. And there you go with activity. We can do it with activity as well. So Monday, did I, put yes for doing something that was planned and exercise over 10 minutes? What was the intensity of it? What was the time of it? What was the type? What did I do? So you can take these bare bones logs and turn them into whatever you want. You can make them as detailed as possible. You can make them as scaled down as possible. Some people are like, I need to track everything in order to stay on track, or if I am tracking everything, I feel so overwhelmed, so I need to start with one thing. And it's like, hey, you're tracking. The research tells me, as a health educator, the data tells me that if you're tracking something, you have that much more positive chance or less risk of gaining weight this week. You have a better chance of being more mindful at the behavior change that you want to do. So when we come back to this tracking thing, it's not just how I do the tracking, it's what I am tracking, and does it mean something to me? Now, again, here's a couple more examples. This is a cool little example here. I'm going to blow this picture up a little bit, of a pen and paper tracking where someone took the things that they wanted to track, they put it all, they drew it all out on a piece of paper, and it looks like they liked the color. So they like, okay, I want to make sure that I'm walking Bentley, which I'm guessing is my pet. Maybe I run. Here's a PM meditation that I do. And do I do them on certain days of the month? And, they color it in. Like, this is super intricate. If you're looking at this and you're like, oh no, Brett, don't make me do that, I'm never going to make you do something like this. But I'm also going to make you preview to the fact that this might work for somebody. And that's okay. If you look over here on the right, it looks like this person, well, that didn't work out very well. It looks like this person put goal plan, lose 15 pounds is their overall goal here at the top. They wrote in a quote of like what keeps them motivated. They wrote in quotes down here of like Confucius, or this could be a quote of someone you enjoy. They have arrows going. This looks someone's that is very much like very into charts and graphs, and that's super cool. Like, don't feel like you need to be limited to like just typing in on MyFitnessPal or Lose It. If you like that stuff, great. But guess what? If you think back to math class. And again, everything I'm talking about here is evidence based, is based in research, and it's me looking at research and then trying to bring it to an analogy that makes sense. So, when you are in math class or you're taking a class at a university or any kind of class where you're learning something, why do you write notes? You write notes so you can remember what you learned. So when you're either tested on it or you have to use it, you can go back to it, right? Think of your tracking of food and exercise as your notes as you are learning new skills. They're not tracking, because tracking actually kind of sounds dull and dumb and, you know, a pain in the butt, and it's work and I don't want to do it, Brett. I've heard it over and over again, if that I'll be successful if I've track. It's probably true, but notice what this person's doing here. This picture, this isn't just tracking. This is like cool note taking from a class where someone is actually learning skills. They're learning skills of, like, here's a smart goal setting of like how to make goals, and here's the goal, but how am I going to do that, and here's my action plans. I will be accountable by using trackers and having accountability buddies, and those buddies might be this. I'm going to break it down further, and here's my journey. Like, there are so many cool things on here. This is notes. This isn't just tracking. This is me having a plan and having that kind of note taking abilities. That's how we learn skills, and then how we go back to practicing skills. So pen and paper tracking can be really cool. But that's not the only way. We can use activity trackers. So we're going back, to the step down thing. We can use what's called wearables. So I'm wearing my Fitbit right here. And, those can be worn on different places in the body. And most people know what trackers are nowadays. They've seen Fitbits or Garmin's or some other kind of pedometer device. Like, I'm not going to go into huge detail on these. If you're interested in these are something you ask your health coach about. And we can definitely turn you on to ones that might make sense to you. But again, it's not just the idea of wearing this, but how do you use the data? Like, what does the data mean to you? How do you use it in order to help with your behavior change skills? That's what we want. And is what you want. And then tracking websites, MyFitnessPal, Lose It, Super Tracker through the government. These are just three of many, many, many sites out there that can really help to keep you on goal and on point, and then also give us data so we can help you with suggestions or brainstorming or whatever may come up. So I think it's super important to come back to, how can this help me? It can help you by just bringing to the forefront what this change means to you. You can easily just do so. I'm going to end on this with tracking and goal setting. You can easily just do this program and get $50. It's pretty easy. You talk to us 4 times, you get $50 through the reward system, and then you could say, okay, I'm done. Or you could use that first 4 weeks of talking to us every single week and having those good contact points to start to maybe develop a different way of looking at your health, your weight loss, your sleep habits, your fitness, your eating, all that different stuff. And maybe you've tried things in the past and they've had some of this stuff in there and they were good programs, they just never stuck. Well, maybe try it a little different. Maybe work a little slower. Maybe know that you're not going to lose 20 pounds in the first 4 weeks, but it would be the idea of, I'm going to really buckle down and try some of these skill building techniques. I'm going to look at this not just as weight loss. I'm going to look at it as changing an overall skill that I'm just not as fluent at right now. Like learning a new language. Learning a new language is something that is really, really tough. And if I don't use it every single, like if I start learning how to conjugate new verbs in French or Spanish or Japanese or whatever it may be, but I don't use it every week, or I fall off from it for a week or two, I'm going to be rusty and I got to come back to it. And that's where you let us as health coach help you with that, keep you on track. So it is 12:30. I do want to be respectful of people's times. Thank you so much for the first 5 minutes of kind of sticking with me and not leaving and making sure that you were here and engaged and giving me awesome feedback on here. I do want to leave a couple questions open here, or a couple minutes open here for questions at the end. As always, contact your health coach with more questions about this. We record these every week. Maybe you go back and watch this again because there was things you missed at the start and you want to really, come back to that. They're always going to be on YouTube for you. We're always going to send them out, and we want you to use these as guideposts or, motivational talks that get you pumped up for your week again or whatever that may be. So, let us help you. Let us help any way that we can, but know that we can't always help with everything, but we will do our best to find the solution. All right. So, with that being said, I'm going to stop blabbing my mouth, unless it is to answer a question. So, feel free to type in questions that you might have, and I'll answer them if I can. And I will keep it open for about 3 extra minutes here. And if there are any questions, I'll go ahead and end the webinar there. So.